All right, guys, I do want to move on because I want to talk Browns. I want to talk Jimmy Haslam specifically, owner of our beloved Browns. He recently came out and said that the trade for Watson was a big swing and a miss, and it got us thinking: how many other times has Jimmy failed this organization as an owner? And in a general sense, how do you guys feel about the Haslams as owners of your Cleveland Browns? Um, I, for one, I was kind of taken aback that he said that about Watson and was actually putting all of the ownership on himself, him and D, for that decision. I thought that showed a measure of maturity that we've thus far lacked from the Haslams, as silly as that sounds. But I want to hear from you, John. Why don't you lead us off on this one? How do you
Yeah.
feel about the Haslams? And in a broader sense, how much they've screwed up in town.
Yeah, this is as complicated a question as it gets. I guess I'll start where I usually do with analysis. You said how many times it's quantitative. I'll go with 12 because they've owned the team for 12 years and we haven't done a whole hell of a lot. Listen, the narrative about the Haslams around the league is that they're meddlesome owners, worse than almost any, if not any, maybe barring Jerry Jones in the league. So when you look at when this team played poorly, Haslam's fingerprints were all over it from the time he bought the team all the way through some of the draft selections, some of the coaching selections. The Hugh Jackson, I think he was a big fan of. That didn't go well. You move from there to a point where he kind of learned his lesson and said, I'm going to quit meddling for a while. He said okay to Baker Mayfield, but didn't necessarily support it 100%. We put together a team that was within a game of the AFC Championship, gave the Chiefs all they could handle in Arrowhead. We've been down that road before. Then what does he do? Go, oh, man, we're really close. Let me meddle again. Let me get Deshaun Watson. Now, at the time, we didn't know it was going to pan out this poorly. I wasn't a huge fan of it, but I said all the time, like, hey, this has to work. If you guys are the pros and you're saying this is going to work, it's got to work. It didn't.
Right.
He had a big hand in bringing Johnny Manziel here. So when I look at what Jimmy Haslam has done, I think if he could get out of his own damn way, he'd be a lot better off. I like that he'll spend unabashedly. I like that we can get creative and have the highest payroll in NFL history. But for the highest payroll in NFL history, I would hope for more than 3 wins. So I think the majority of the blame for the entire history of his ownership is at his feet and his wife's feet. And I think if he would get the hell out of the way and let football people make football decisions, our team would be in a lot better spot.
Noah, I want to hear from you, but I want to jump in just real quick because everything you said is right. And yet, I do think that it's the job of ownership to take big swings. Listen, here's the problem. And the problem is simply lack of accountability. If you are the CEO of Starbucks and your revenue's down and you need to make big decisions and you take a big home run swing and you go out and you buy Dunkin', I know that's probably impossible, but bear with me, and that works out well, great. But if it doesn't work out well, you're probably gone as CEO of Starbucks. The
Exactly.
problem with the Browns or any organization in sports is you make this big swing and a miss and nothing happens. He's still owner, he's still that CEO role. I think that's the biggest problem. What's sad and what sucks for Browns fans is that they have a built-in revenue model that won't change no matter what. Uh, I'm a big fan of voting with your dollars, but it doesn't matter. We still go to games. We still buy gear. We still support the team. We're still going to show up in Brook Park. So accountability is key here. And I think you're right. That's where you let football people make football decisions, because if they make the wrong decisions, then there's some accountability. You can axe guys like Stefanski, Barry, etc.
I say it
Noah,
all
give
the
me your
time. You're 100% right that taking big swings is the role of ownership, but taking a big swing and missing doesn't absolve you of responsibility. And that's where,
100%.
we're aligned.
Can
Noah, what
can
do you
I
think?
And we have no
Yeah.
recourse as fans. It's terrible. Noah, give me
Yeah,
your
no,
take.
that's the worst part, is that the fans have no recourse except throwing a parade and being upset. John, you hit the nail on the head in terms of a lot of the points I was going to make when it comes to all of the blunders in his past. Hugh Jackson, 2016, 2017, it took halfway through the 2018 season before you finally fired a guy that lost the locker room 2 seasons ago. We're talking Johnny Manziel. I mean, hindsight's 2020. I was young at the time. I was excited to get Johnny because it was Johnny football, right?
It was some fun times.
But the writing was on the wall. Every NFL ownership group, GM, drafter, blah, knew this kid was going to be trouble in the league because of all of his stuff in college. Something you didn't mention, Freddie Kitchens. Freddie Kitchens, anybody? We hired an offensive coordinator because our quarterback and our GM liked him, even though he never was a head coach or had a lot of experience.
He was like a bad gambler, man. It's gonna hit this time.
You could go into the stadium. Some people could say the stadium is a blunder because they are moving the team from downtown. We don't have to go into the stadium debacle for the 13th time here on the page, but these are all examples of Jimmy Haslam being a failure to the fan base and the team, really. Deshaun Watson, the comment is the big point here. I am glad that Jimmy can stand at a podium and say, hey, I take blame and take the bullet in the back for Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski. That shows progress to me because we have seen in the past that Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry work. That being said, he needs to stop meddling. And if we're talking about meddling, there was a guy currently on his way to Oregon right now by the name of Jimmy Haslam that has been at every top recruit visit, every top recruit workout, every top recruit dinner. He's all hands in the pie right now. And I get it. I get when you're an investor and you have all of this money and thought process and stock into a team, I would probably be the same way.
Definitely. If the three of us won or purchased the Cleveland Browns, you bet your ass the three of us would be at every single. We'd be doing the exact same thing. We'd say, yeah, we're going to let the football people make football decisions. And then the three of us would get together and go, hey, what do you think about so-and-so? Should we push that for the draft? Of course we would do that.
So right. I might like respectfully disagree with you on that. I'd stay out of it. If I owned a team and hired a GM, I'd let him do his job. No.
When you have those billions of dollars, let's revisit this conversation because you're lying to your friends, the audience, and yourself with that comment.
No,
there's no chance.
I don't think money changes you as an individual. I manage teams at work. I'd say,
no,
do your job, do your job. I know you're going to say it's different, but if you think
it is different.
Pulling the trigger on draft day, I disagree.
Here's what you need to understand about being a billionaire. You are the boss and have been the boss through everything. You control things, and that's how you've become a billionaire through business, unless your last name's Vanderbilt. So as a controlling person that built $1 billion business, no way in hell are you ceding control.
They do it all the time. Most owners in the NFL do it. It's just not Jimmy. And I love how you said too, you're like, hey, you got to understand this about billionaires. Like you're closer to that than me. Neither one of us get it.
No idea. But I was meant to be one. So I have some like internal insight. Something just went wrong. The wires
let me play devil's advocate for a second though here as well, just to gauge some reactions off of you guys, because I think Jimmy has done a better job in terms of his lack of meddling or lessening his meddling. Mm-hmm. One being, obviously being okay to spend money. I know that's a little less on the meddling side, but a lot of owners, shout out Tim Lyons' Bengals, don't like to or cannot spend money. And that is a huge bonus of having Jimmy Haslam as an owner. That is a positive for Jimmy. The second positive and a second situation that's recent to me that I think is a positive for Jimmy Haslam and a check in the good column is the Myles Garrett situation. Myles Garrett wanted to meet with Jimmy. Jimmy said, I'm going to let the football people do football things, and said, I'm not meeting with you. Fans hated it at first. Kind of makes sense in retrospect now because Myles Garrett is here to stay.
That's fair.
What do you think those point to in terms of Jimmy Haslam's progress as an owner, I guess? Or do you guys think it's still going to be much more of the same and we're going to end up forcing?
I think it was ego. I think it was all ego. I don't think doing the right thing for the wrong reason is still okay. But he didn't decline the meeting with Myles Garrett because he stopped meddling. He did it to be an asshole and prove a point, and it just worked.
And I didn't like that more for the overtones racially that like get in your place, do your job, I'm not meeting with you kind of thing. That really rubbed me the wrong way. If he had been like you guys are saying, if that's the modus operandi that of Jimmy this whole time as an owner, great, but it hasn't been. So I don't know. I wasn't a fan of that.
I think the
Tim
best
Lyons.
organizations, though, they stay out. I don't, Bob Kraft with the Patriots. I don't remember who the owner of the Chief is because he doesn't make any news because he lets the football people do football
The
stuff.
Hunts.
Yeah, there you go. The best franchises to me seem to kind of let the chips fall where they may. Pittsburgh, Baltimore, these owners they show up in their loge and cheer on Sunday and let the football people do football stuff.
It's the whole thing is just frustrating at the end of the day because we've gone through so much as Browns fans, and this is a Browns town. As much as we love the Cavs and we'll talk about the Cavs and all of that, at the end of the day, this is a football city and a football town, and the fans, us included, at the office, deserve better. And I want to have hope that we're moving in a better direction. And the first step of that is admitting defeat on the Deshaun Watson thing. By the way, did you guys see Deshaun Watson responded to it?
No, what did he say?
I'll pull up what his caption on Instagram was in a second after I finish my take. But we just deserve better at the end of the day. And I hope us admitting this mistake is a step in the right direction to finally getting better and finally moving towards a place as a franchise that feels like the stability that we had in the early 20s. Jesus Christ, that's crazy to say, but the early 20s of 2020. Yeah.
Let me ask you guys this, because it came out recently, and this is me dropping a little bit of a bomb on the show. It came out recently that Jimmy Haslam basically said that he expects Myles Garrett to be a leader and that he's pushing Myles towards being a leader. It kind of came out that he wasn't much of a leader or locker room presence despite being a captain. What's your take, John?
I don't think so. Listen, you hope and you wish, and the ideal scenario is for your highest paid player and your most talented player to be your leader. But if you go into that situation thinking that just because someone is rich and talented, they are automatically born to lead or should lead, I think is a fallacy. A lot of teams have their best player being the captain. A lot of teams, it's not true. You look at the history of pro sports, I could list a lot of Hall of Famers who weren't great locker room guys, who weren't excellent leaders. Shaq was the best player on the Lakers, kind of a goofball. Allen Iverson wasn't somebody you could turn your franchise over to. Michael Vick was extremely immature. These guys are ballers who execute at the highest level on a regular basis. But I think that you have to look to who the natural leaders are, and sometimes you put the captaincy on somebody's chest because they've shown what it takes to be a leader. I don't have any problem, honestly, with Myles Garrett going, I'm God's gift to defensive line, and I'm not coming to this meeting on time or at all. It's not the best look in the world, but I don't think he's an evil human for doing it. But I think we put too much stake in saying, well, you're really tall and you're really strong and you're really fast, and you're really good at football. You must be a leader. I wish he was. I think it would be a good look if he was. My fingers would be crossed for him to mature and do it. But no, I don't.
Let me jump in.
I don't think he should lead.
You say that it doesn't make him a bad human. First of all, that's filled with such hyperbole. No one's saying he's a bad human.
No, I didn't say you were saying that. I just, yeah, keep going.
But do I think it reflects somewhat on his character as a professional football player and teammate? A little bit. I mean, Noah will testify to the fact that, when you're a football player, it's about the guys next to you and being in the trenches with them. They relate it in speeches all the time to being like warfare. And the fact that he's not stepping up and leading, I think it's a little bit of a shame. I don't put that on him as a person. I think he's a good person. But if you have the C on your chest in particular, I think that there should be some value attached to that. There should be some leadership. Otherwise, he shouldn't be voted as captain. It's more of a formality, and I think that's bullshit.
I'm not going to get political, but I'm just going to say that being voted something doesn't mean you deserve the job.
Well,
listen, real quick, guys. Deshaun Watson's comment back was his caption today on his Instagram post, wearing Browns gear, working out, rehabbing in the facility. Maybe if I weren't built for this, I'd let it faze me.
Bro, you're not seeing a single snap. Barring a plane crash, you are done as a Cleveland Brown. You need to accept
You're
that.
done as an NFL quarterback, period.
Right.